Morning, and thank you so much for joining us here at Voice Uganda Radio again on this beautiful Sunday. Whether it's morning, evening, or afternoon where you are, let's give a big welcome to our American audience as well as our audience around the world. I shared last week on the program that we have been picked up in 30 countries, which is a huge compliment to us, and we are very, very thankful for the time in which you give us on these Sundays. We don't take it for granted, so we thank you very, very much. You are here on Voice Uganda Radio with Freedom at Hand with Miss Brenda and the Honorable Zoe Bakoko. And we will also have a special guest that we will introduce her in just a little bit and bring her into the program as well, a sister of ours visiting from UK who's also a member of FUF. So we will give her an introduction and bring her in this morning as well. We may let the Honorable Zoe Bakoko have the honors of doing that. So good morning, Zoe. How are you?
Good morning, Miss Brenda. I'm okay. I think I sent you the email with credentials, and I would have loved you to do that. I'm fine. Every Sunday, I feel truly blessed to be sharing and listening to our listeners who are so devoted, and they're always on radio. They look forward to this program in hope for the wind of change and in New Uganda. So I am so blessed to be a part of this, and thank you very much, my sister, and welcome, Miss Margaret Opio.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Margaret, for being here and being a part of Voice Uganda Radio here on Freedom at Hand this morning. It is a pleasure, as always, when we have others come in and join in and be a part of the conversation. I understand from the email that I received that you are a lawyer by profession, practicing there in the UK, and a lot of what you stand for in your company and the way you run it and the way you believe is a lot of the way Voice Uganda Radio feels about the movement for a better Uganda, having passionate in your resolve for what you're doing with the understanding of importance of education and health there and in the economy there in Uganda. So thank you so much for being a part of the program. And if you would just say hello to everybody and introduce yourself in.
Hello, everybody. As Brenda has introduced, my name is Margaret Opio, and I come from the United Kingdom. And yes, coming across this organization has fulfilled one of my biggest aspirations. I remember a few years ago, I was reflecting on the issues in Uganda, and I thought, okay, this is what I would wish to do. I would wish to form two queues, and in one queue I would say, all those who want development without any considerations of where somebody is born, what religion he belongs to, or what his political inclinations are, queue here, and all all those who don't, queue there. And I would work with the people who want progress, development for all. And I was ecstatic when I met with the chairman, and he spelled out what this organization stands for. And I am very, very, very delighted to be here speaking and sharing with everyone. So I'm very, very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Boy, those words are music to our ears, because it's the anthem of what we believe. One Uganda, united for all, no matter which region, which tribe, which anything, coming together as one. So thank you so much for being here, and I'm sure we're going to have a great and lively discussion this morning. For those of you who missed us yesterday, thank you for the love. It means so much to us, because we get on the air week after week, we talk, we share, we have callers, we talk about the views, but we understand and know we can't hear from all of you. Yesterday, we were out because there were meetings that had to be had. And as you know, we've talked about on the radio before, sometimes it takes us all away to be a part of these meetings. But thank you for your emails. Thank you for your text messages, for your posts that you put out there on Facebook. We know that we're making a difference. We know that you hear our voices loud and clear. We do not take that for granted, and we do accept our apology for being off the air yesterday, but we're back this morning, and Freedom at Hand is your first lineup, and all the other shows will be following throughout the day. So thank you so much for coming back and being a part of the discussion that we're getting ready to have here. Zoe and Margaret will come in on this too. We've talked a lot about what's happening there in Uganda. The military's fleeing. The police officers are fleeing. People are no longer wanting to be a part of this government because of the safe houses, because of the torturing, because of the things that are happening to the Ugandan people. People are tired and they're fed up. I think people are starting to understand that this could someday be the fate of them. The very thing you're doing to the individual could be what happens to you someday, because you cannot turn your back on this man in any way once you get in his government. If you do, you're labeled as a terrorist or some other sort of form, anything that he can make you a political prisoner or whatever. There is rumor that he feels the need to start what he considers to be something like an African Union force, East African Union force, where countries come together, surrounding areas, whenever there's a coup attempt or whenever a country's in trouble, to come and to the rescue. We already know that this has been tried time and time before with the African Union, the AU, and some other forces that are the African Standby Forces, where the particular one that was set up there in East Africa would be for all that region. I think Cameroon, Ethiopia, Kenya, Rwanda, Somalia, Sudan, and Uganda. This is something that people have never been able to see eye to eye and come together and work for because of all the conflict in the country. Now this man is asking the Ugandan people to look at this, and neighboring countries to look at this once again as a way of controlling the people. Zoe, we've talked time and time again on this program. The control he wants is not the control that is needed there in the country. Let's have a conversation on this, because I think what he is trying to invoke here on the Ugandan people is fear, and to continue to keep them where they're at. There's nothing about a peace movement to better the people of Uganda, but to continue to keep the people where they're at. Speak on that, if you will, and then we'll go to Margaret for her comment on that.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brenda. As you know, Africa has been perturbed by several conflicts. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest wave of conflicts, there was the wave of conflicts when African nations were seeking independence from their colonialists. That's where you had the Mau Mau fighting in Kenya. That's at the time when we had the presidents, like President Jomo Kenyatta, the president of Ghana, Nkrumah, the kind of resistance when they were looking for independence. And this was in the 60s. And then the colonial powers gave the African states independence. Then in the 70s and 80s, another wave of fighting. In South Africa, there was the apartheid movement, and then you have all this resistance in Mozambique, Zimbabwe, which brought leaders in, like President Mugabe. Then in Uganda, you had the freedom fighters fighting against elected government of Obote, and then after that you have the overthrow by Idi Amin. And then after that, you have the Museveni Liberation Forces coming in. And at that time, when the Musevenis came in, people thought these were a new wave of progressive leaders, because they were overthrowing dictatorships. And so the freedom fighters like Museveni were born. And the purpose was to ensure, like Museveni said it himself, to fight leaders who overstay in power. Yes. And the leaders who overstayed in power were, he was referring to, like people like President Amin and President Obote, who only stayed in power longest for 8 years. And now Museveni has been in power. If you multiply 8 by almost 4 times. He's getting to 30 years. And who has overstayed the longest? And so when you look at this, and the wars, like when they fought in Rwanda, where they killed a lot of people, the wars in Congo, the wars in Sudan, the wars in Somalia. That is when I was a minister. Then we went to African Union. The women were appealing for peace. And so we went back to our leaders and we urged them and said, the women and our children bear the brunt of conflict. Can we please have ceasefire so that the women and children can enjoy their countries and their communities and their lives and their families? And so after that, this idea of the peacekeeping forces, the women pleaded. And then we needed peacekeepers in countries like Somalia, which had become totally failed states. We had conflict in Ethiopia and Eritrea. And I remember working with my colleagues, and honestly, the women meant it when we really, really wanted conflict, when we developed the C1, which is the conflict early warning signs, so that you will be able to see a conflict before it erupts. And it is very disheartening, Miss Brenda, almost 15, 20 years later, this is still going on. The conflict in Sudan was never detected. The conflicts that are going on in Uganda, in Rwanda, in Congo have not been detected. It has been transferred to Central African Republic. And I was just telling you people on radio the other day, at the end of June, I was in the UN. It is pathetic that Africa is still in this situation. And in the East African region, who is exporting all these conflicts? And like we have discussed before, we have seen that President Museveni is one of the key people exporting all this conflict, because we also found out that people like his Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Kutesa, owns NHAS, which is now handling all these countries, the cargo coming from all these countries. And so there is a vested interest in ensuring and sustaining these conflicts. And now Museveni sees we are talking about this. People are angry, as you say. The police, the army are fleeing. People are deserting because they realize that this guy is becoming a liability. He has not helped, he's not in the interest of Ugandans. And so every Ugandan is trying to check himself. Do I stand with this guy? Don't I? And when this process is going on, he's feeling the heat. And now there are two things he has done. They went to the African Union and they enacted a law for the African Union so that a sitting president, even he has committed crimes, he should not, he should be left scotch-free. They have built an immunity law against themselves so that nobody can touch them. They become untouchable. Then at the East African region level, you see all these fireworks in Kenya, you see in Rwanda, and you see in Uganda. So he goes ahead and says, I don't trust the Ugandan, the UPDF. I don't trust the Ugandan army anymore. I don't trust the police anymore. The only thing I can do is now to promote, to develop this East African community, peacekeepers. And these are the people then, if anybody in Uganda were to overthrow his government, or there was people were angry and they voted him out, then he will start a war. And now the East African, his so-called, this group, which they are now, Rwanda has given like 800, Museveni has given. They are the only two countries so far who have contributed to the East African community peacekeeping force, so that they will crush. Because you heard both Kagame and Museveni say, anybody who is an enemy of the state must be crushed.
Yeah. So,
This is a total, you are right, it's for
yeah.
control. It is
Yes.
not to protect anybody, it is protecting Museveni and the likes of him to overstay in power.
Yeah. So let's go to Margaret, because Margaret, Zoe said something very interesting there. The trust in the people no longer have trust in this president and no longer want to stand by him. And yet now he's starting to treat them in such a way that if they don't want to stand with me, then they stand against me. Therefore, they're in the line of fire. Go ahead and comment on that, Margaret, if you will.
Thank you, Brenda. Yes, I think that is very important. I think priorities have been mixed up there, because the most important thing is, I think, for the president to get the people's trust would be to be focusing on the needs of the people and the causes, and to prevent the causes of conflict, rather than seeking to control externally. So the people have lost trust because the government is not working for them. The government is not working for their own self-development, for the progress of the nation. Instead, resources are being utilized for external control. So I think that what the country needs is a government that feels for the people, a government that feels what the people are feeling, the government that is willing to deploy resources for the betterment of each and every individual in the country. Because life is a gift. When we talk of peacekeeping, what sort of peace? I think the finer distinctions need to be drawn here, because sometimes nationally, internationally, or even individually, words are thrown around. But I think that we need to make finer distinctions, because when a head of state gets up and says, I want to control peace, what sort of peace are they talking about?
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, when you really want to achieve peace or you want to control peace, you have to start by looking at how every individual in your nation feels. Because I live in the United Kingdom, and during the war in Libya, one thing really struck me. When the war broke out, the United States and the UK, for instance, sent planes to bring back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of their nationals, take them away from the war zone, so that they can ensure that the family members, not only the children, that individual's family, their child, their wife, do not remain fatherless, do not remain a widow, and so that the nation can continue to benefit from that particular human being's resource. But what is happening here, we are going out, Uganda is going out in the name of protecting peace, when they are not recognizing the resources they have within the individuals in their own countries. They are not working to develop the resources. They are not seeking to get their citizens to be peaceful in themselves, because they have food, they have medical facilities, they have proper education. That's completely missing the point. And I think that that is something that should not be tolerated in this day and age. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, Brenda and all the listeners, life is a gift. And in every child that is born, we see the bright light that shines in their eyes. And I think that is the responsibility of each and everybody on this planet, to ensure that the light in the eyes of that child is not turned off or switched off by our own behaviors and our own actions or inaction. And I think that is our responsibility, to ensure that we nurture the attributes that that child is born with. No child is born saying, oh, I'm born green, I'm going to kill all the purple people when I grow up. No, that's not the case. So when I think an individual or a nation is talking about peace, I think that we need to reflect. And if we hear somebody talking about protecting peace when they themselves are not working hard to ensure their own peace, inner peace, and the peace of the people that they are serving, then I think we must not listen to that person because they don't mean well for us. And I think this is exactly what is happening in Uganda.
Yes.
People are waking up and recognizing that, no, sorry, this is not working for me. And I think that this is something that must be progressed. And I think that for me, my reflection and I've been working to this end for over 10 years individually on my own. And I was determined that I was going to develop myself to a point where I can stand up and talk for my people. But I'm so glad that I've been saved the trouble of having to do it on my own. So I'm not alone anymore. Thank you.
Yes, yes, you are. Zoe, let's even bounce off of something that Margaret just shared there, because one of the things she said, well, let's talk on two issues here. One of the things she said is how everyone flew in to get their people out, to bring them back to safety. We know this happened in Rwanda. When the genocide started to happen, all the nations sent in for their people, and they left the people there to fight and kill amongst each other. This is not what we want to see happen in Uganda. Another thing Margaret said, and you can say something on this behalf too, we're not born with a certain color in which we eliminate anyone who is not of that color or that tribe or that whatever. In Rwanda, I mean, neighbors turned against each other simply for that very reason. I think when we say the Ugandan people are getting tired, the Ugandan people are no longer listening to their leader because the peace he's talking about is not the peace that they feel and they see and they understand every day. And we have to get them to a point where they love each other regardless of whatever region they are from, so that this does not happen, that he allows himself to turn the people against each other. Go ahead and comment on that, Zoe.
Thank you very much. Margaret just articulated that so well.
Very well.
Brenda, very well. Because just think about it. If you are a leader of a country, the highest priority you have is the safety of your people, but not to push them in harm's way. That's typically what Museveni does, always putting Ugandans in a harm's way. And he doesn't care as long as it benefits him and his family. And that is very sad, because you see many countries, when there's like I said, when they begin seeing the early warning signs of conflict, you will see the countries of the free world beginning to warn their citizens and telling them about the travel bans, telling them not to go to a particular region or to get out of that region if they are there on vacation or work. And they will even try very hard to ensure that they enhance that process of getting their own citizens out of harm's way. But in Uganda, that does not happen. What President Museveni does is to expose his people to line of fire and not protect them. And so this peacekeeping force him and Kagame are building is not for protection of the people. It's to ensure they are entrenched in power, because they realize they have lost the people's trust. They are not giving them, like Margaret was saying, a good education system. They are not offering them a good health system. You have seen, and we have discussed this in our radio, where women are delivering in toilets, in kitchens. The conditions are just unbelievable, abhorring, because you cannot have a young baby, like Margaret was saying, who did not make the choice when to arrive in this world, to be delivered in the condition like that and probably end up even with a tetanus infection and die. So what kind of leader is this, who doesn't care for his people but can afford to have money spent in keeping a peace force which is going to keep him in power? You don't care about the unclean conditions in the hospitals. You don't care about the lack of oxygen in hospitals. People die because there's no oxygen in Mulago Hospital. You don't care about the lack of medicine in these health centers and hospitals. You just don't care a damn if Ugandans can get a good healthcare system. You don't allocate enough resources, financial resources to the health sector, neither to the education sector, but you pump up the cost of the military and defense because you know that that is the sector which is going to keep you in power. And you don't even just stop there, you even go further to have money and give it to the not only to the military within Uganda. Well, now he mistrusts the military in Uganda. What is he doing now?
The military. Let's say this, Zoe, and Margaret can come on this if she wants to too. The military sees their family struggling. The military men can't afford to send their wives and their family to the doctor. The military can't afford to educate their children. The military and the police force, their children are going to bed hungry at night as well. Unless you're high up in the government, let's talk about
it's not even high up in government. It's
the grassroots people. They're feeling it. Yeah.
The pinch is they are feeling the pain. And you know, when Museveni is always talking about peacekeeping force, giving a lot of money to defense, going into Congo to attack the Congolese and make Congo a rape center, going to Rwanda, working shoulder to shoulder with Kagame and ending up creating this huge genocide, going to Sudan and using those bombs to, for Museveni, I remember him saying it and I thought it was a joke, Miss Brenda, that war is good for the economy. Can you imagine that a president stand up and say this in front of the cameras and addressing the MPs and the caucus and saying that war is good for the economy? And so for him, exporting all these wars is good. And so he building this peacekeeping force is for him to make money so that him and Kutesa can go to all these countries where they are touching up the nations and causing all these wars and then start pillaging and plundering their natural resources and carrying them, the cargo, and handling it through Kutesas. It is the most abhorrent and horrific thing.
It is because Margaret, in a part of her platform that you're standing on, Margaret, you're talking about health, education, and the economy there in Uganda. So tell me your feeling on this man flooding all the resources into war and into the military and not into the sources of the people. Go ahead, Margaret.
Thank you, Brenda. This is what I see here, that fundamentally it's the duty of the state to provide and protect their citizens. And I know, I accept that Uganda has gone through a long stretch of periods of turmoil. However, for every successive government that comes to power, there's an opportunity to turn around and change the country's fortunes for the better. And this is what I see has not happened in this instance. In fact, it's been made worse. When I was growing up in Uganda, people were so proud. You wouldn't see anybody begging for money. But now, I haven't gone to Uganda for a few years. However, people who go home, people fear to go home because they say when you get up in the morning, your compound will be flooded by people who are coming to ask for money. When I was growing up, Ugandans were so proud. They had their dignity. People were happy. People would know, when you go as a visitor, you would have people lining to either offer you a cow, a goat, a chicken. That's not happening anymore. So what has happened is that so many years of not progressing, of not recognizing the needs of our people and progressing the cause of our people genuinely, has deprived us of our dignity, our humanity. It's led to, I think, a big section of the country, of the population, almost making us inhuman. We've gone back in time so many years. And it's like the nation has been killed slowly but surely. People usually focus when it comes to war. People are more perturbed when they see bullets being fired and gunshots being heard from distances. But the psychological impacts of what has happened here, the knockdown effect is going to compound for years and years and years. And if something is not done about that now, there's going to be very little hope for people. Because for the adults who are now beggars, begging on the street because they can't afford to make ends meet. You just mentioned there that even the military themselves, they can't afford to send their wives to, their children to good schools. They can't afford to give their family good food, even to good hospitals. If a large section of the population, even those who are supposed to be in work, and of course a large sector of the population is already not working, and yet, ironically, if we think about it, look at Uganda. We have the sun. Our soils are fertile. When I was growing up, you just have to throw seeds in the ground. You don't even have to weed or apply an insecticide, and you'd harvest the crop. Mm-hmm. What do we lack? And what do we have when we can't afford to send our children to school? So seriously, this is something that has pushed the nation to so many years back. And it is something that if it's not addressed now, the knock-on effect is going to be substantial. And unfortunately for the world, we can't say, right, that's happening in Uganda. It's not going to affect the rest of the world. It's not. It's not like that anymore. In fact, it has never been like that. And I think that probably this is the best time for us to wake up and do something about it. Because it's the military people, the police, the people who are at work, they cannot even afford ends meet. In fact, it's now getting into a vicious cycle and a downward spiral where, the people who are parents now, they're giving birth to children who they can't look after. So the children who are being born, who are born yesterday, being born today, and being born tomorrow, they're going to be worse off and worse off and worse off. And it's the compounding effect. I would like us all to work that out. And if we work that out, my only calling to anyone who is listening to this broadcast is that we in our generation, we have very little time. Because if we don't do something about it now, it's going to get more and more and more difficult as the problems compound and compound and compound. Thank you.
Yes, and they will continue to compound because, Zoe, we've talked about time and time again on this program where we already know the unemployment rate is way, way too high in Uganda. But even when we look now at the people who are employed, that the sitting president expects those people to work for free or to be beggars in positions in which they've been hired to work in. There is no stability even in the people that are working in government jobs. Teachers that haven't been paid for months, military that are starting to sell weapons and whatever they can to get money to feed and take care of their families. I mean, let's forget about the 80% of the country that's unemployed. Let's talk about the percentage that is employed by this government and still not able to take care and maintain themselves. Well, comment on that for me, if you will, Zoe.
Miss Brenda, you know that the workforce or the people who are actually employed by government in Uganda, the number stands at around 300,000. And I mean, what is 300,000 jobs
in 36 million people? Yes.
People close to, according to them, close to 40 million people in Uganda. Wow. So you can see this government And then if I was raising the issue of the state house staffer jobs, you saw how much he's paying people who are working in the state house, and against the rest of the people. You are paying someone 9 million or more a month, and the teachers are being paid 200,000 or less a month. And so when you look at this comparison, the health workers are not even getting 500,000, but you are paying other people over 10, 20 million, and then you are surrounding, ring fencing yourself with this so-called military, whom he just uses these people. He sends out our sons. I think Miss Dorothy has talked about this. We have spoken about this before. He sends he exports the conflict, sends out our sons to fight in all these countries, and he actually gets the money. These people are not even paid the money they go and serve for in those places. So for Museveni, let me tell you, there's no link between the peace, this rhetoric peace he talks about, and the reality that Museveni promotes, which is to plunder and cause bloodshed, divide people along various lines. Museveni, to me, is an outlaw that lives by violating international law and any sense of human dignity and decency. And while he plunders from neighboring countries, at home he promotes poverty on massive scale so that he can control the population. Employment, he uses that as a means of dividing the country. So if he's just giving out 300,000 jobs to, as you just put it, 34 million people, maybe the employable is about half of that population. That is even not a drop in the ocean. It's even less than a drop in the ocean. And so Museveni wants to wave all this in front of the population and the people and give them hope. How can about 30 or 20 million Ugandans compete for 300,000 jobs, Miss Brenda? He's not giving an environment where the private sector could flourish and give jobs to many people. The guy is a joke, and it's just horrifying that the Ugandan people have tolerated him this far. And now as they wake up and say, no, not again, enough, then he starts building, ring fencing himself with this so-called peacekeeping force. That peacekeeping force that he's building at East African community level, it is supposed to subdue his own military, because he knows, as you just put it, he's not, the military are not taking enough food to their children. The monthly pass is nothing. The police, if you look at the accommodation, go to Zambia, the police was like 5 families sleeping in one unipod. How can you have 5 families? What are the living conditions like? The health, the overcrowding. I mean, and then the degradation of the family unit, because each family is a sacred family, and to make babies, you must have a sacred situation. You have 5 families all sleeping in one round room. How does that work? Museveni has destroyed the family unit. Museveni has killed our culture. Museveni is destroying, because like Margaret says, for years to come, this is going to be our challenge. But I'm just glad that in the new Uganda, what the FUF believes in the leadership of Professor Ami Omara Otunu, and also what FADU believes in, we are going to have enormous resources to go home and reverse this situation. That is the hope I have, and that is what makes me happy, because I know we can change it for Ugandans and make it better. Miss Brenda, you have seen the meetings we have gone to together. We have gone to these meetings where there are people who are ready to hold our hands and come back with us and put in a lot of resources to develop the Ugandan people. And so that is the thing which gives me hope. Otherwise, Ugandans are the kind of destruction which this president has caused will put Ugandans for 40, 50, 60 years behind.
Yeah, I say that all the time on this program and on the American Connection, that Uganda has moved back to the 1800s. If you even look back into the 60s, where African Americans were at during the civil rights movement in this country, Uganda has moved even farther back than that. We have progressed so much more than they have. Even look at Nelson Mandela and what he did for the South African people in a short period of time. And yet this man has had 28 years, and we still are talking and getting ready to stop talking about issues that are not being resolved at all. You know, Margaret, I want to come back to you. When I remember this, I want to say this from what Zoe said. When the teachers were on strike, and Zoe, you probably remember this, when the teachers were on strike, one of the things they did when talking to the teachers is after they were all done, they took them into this grand room where they were going to all be given lunch. A lot of the teachers walked away from that meal because they said, I'm going to fill my stomach, but my children are at home and they're hungry. So you want to bribe me and you want to bring me into this and eat, enjoy, and be merry, like you're just saying, Zoe. He's breaking up the culture and the structure of the family. Why would a mother or a father go and have such a lavish meal knowing that their children, their stomachs are empty at home because there's no money to buy and pay and give them what they need? Margaret, one of the things we say in this country is the greatest lessons in life comes from the challenges that we go through. Not the challenges that we go through individually, but the challenges that we go through as a people.
Community.
Do you feel like this is a lot of the reason that the Ugandan people are starting to stand as one, put their voices together, move away, and say we will no longer tolerate and be a part of what the country is becoming? Go ahead and comment on that for me, if you will.
Precisely. That's precisely the point, because there's an inner core in the individual that once it rises, that once it's not broken completely, untouched for negative purposes, and it rises, then it will be unstoppable. Because that's precisely what happened in the scenario that you've just pictured. Because, and that's how I feel, and that's how the people that I've met that are walking on this particular journey, that's how they feel. That's a deep-seated awakening and saying, that's it, enough is enough. Come what may. I want to do something about this because it has to stop. And this is what we are calling upon, and this is what FUF stands for, and this is what attracted me to this organization in the first place. And it's therefore, what it indicates is that FUF has come at the right time, at the time when people have been pushed to the limit. They're pushed to the corner where they're saying, hold on a minute, no, I'm sorry, I have to rise and have to do something about it. The only thing is, people need the leader. People need someone who will stand up and say, right, with the right principles and something that they can identify and say, yes, I think this is what I want. This is what will work for me. And I think that's why we've come at the right time. Because there's something about the individual, the spirit, that great core spirit in the individual, that is so pure. And once that is invoked and comes to the surface, then we'll see change, and we'll see meaningful change. And I think that time is here for Uganda.
Yeah, most definitely, because, you know, Freedom and Unity Front and the Federal Alliance for Democracy and Development in Uganda, we may stand individually as one, even with Margaret being excited about not being the only voice out there. I think even if you are the only silent voice, I think there are 10,000 people that stand behind everyone who is trying to move this forward in truth for the Ugandan people. Because Zoe, I mean, we have talked a lot about people coming together, people uniting, people standing as one, no longer allowing this to be the way. Like I shared before Margaret starts speaking there. When you offer me a meal and yet you have no regard for what is at home waiting on me, there's a breakdown somewhere. Mentally, you cannot be a stable person if the only thing you're concerned with is me in that moment and giving me what I need so that I walk out and continue to be what you need me to be. The days of that are over. I mean, when a Ugandan is knocked down 7 times, they have to get up 8 times. When they're knocked down once, they have to get up twice, because that is the situation in which the Ugandan people, especially at the grassroots level, are living. Go ahead and comment on that, Zoe, if you will.
You know, Miss Brenda, we have a saying in my language that you give me food, I will eat it now, and as I go home, I'll go to the toilet, and I will, all the pit latrine, and all that food will come out. And so if this guy decides to bribe the teachers, and I think they understood that very well, it's not about just filling their stomach. Even if they ate it on the way, they will poop that food. And what would happen? Their children, they are hungry, their stomachs are empty, and you go home and you find you are starving children. How guilty do you feel that you were able to sell them off to this guy and eat and fill your stomach, and while they were starving at home? That's not the culture of our people. That's not who the Ugandan people are. And I don't even know where Museveni comes from, because if he's truly a Ugandan, he knows what Ugandans stand for. Our people are not the kind of people who would bribe you with food or something, and then you let the family starve to death and control this person because you gave him a piece of lunch. And so why do you think those teachers walked away? They walked away because that's not who they are. That's not who our people are. And I believe that's exactly why the teachers were upset, and they said, no, I am not going to have this. So I am blessed and grateful that, we have...
Yeah, because when we think about it, and Margaret, you can comment on this, when we think about going back to the AU and what it stood for, it was crimes against humanity, which this man does every single day. Now,
Yes.
Who in the world is supposed to stand with him and fight on his side when that is the very thing that he's doing to the Ugandan people?
Yes. That's the question.
Yes.
That's the big question. That's the big question. I think we should all wait and see who decides to stand with him.
Yeah.
I think for them, the presidents who have been committing all these crimes, Margaret, that's the thing Brenda is drawing your attention to. He has gone to African Union. Even at the fall of Gaddafi, first of all, he was the only one who stood up and said, no, this guy, we should not be allowed interference, outside interference. We should allow African Union to do it, protect this guy. Then now President Kenyatta is in the International Criminal Court. Museveni is singing the loudest song. And he was the one who took Kony to the International Criminal Court. And he was the one who supported Omar Bashir of Sudan being taken to the International Criminal Court. And now he is protecting Uhuru Kenyatta, and he's singing out loudest. Who is he singing for? Is he beginning to get guilty and understand that he could also be a candidate for International Criminal Court, and therefore now he must put this ring fence himself with this immunity law? Who is he standing for? For himself, or is it for the people?
Yes, I remember the five police officers that wanted to be forgiven and pardoned of their crimes against Steve Biko in South Africa, and the way that he was beaten and the way that he was tortured. And during the criminal court proceeding, they even went to Nelson Mandela to ask pardon and forgiveness for their crime. He said no. He said, no, you must stand for the crime in which you committed. This man was brutally beaten and tortured to his death. President Museveni cannot say that he is not aware of the things that are happening there in Uganda in those safe houses. He cannot say that he is not aware of the Black Mambas. He cannot, nor can Janet Museveni say that they are not aware of the death squads that come into these prisons. We heard that very clearly from the pieces that were played from Mr. Walden's pieces where he was in prison in the jails there. They cannot say that they are not aware of the torture and the war crimes that are happening to individuals who are just innocently stating the fact that something was stolen, something was missing, there is no accountability for certain things. These people are labeled as terrorists. The prisons in Uganda are filled with innocent people who are there for political reasons only, who must be freed. And those things must be destroyed, torn down, and built as a monument of history of what should never happen again. And this is a man who thinks that the world is supposed to now pardon him and forgive him for all the things that he has done to these individuals. You're talking about family members who are still alive, who cannot sleep at night for what has happened to their family members. And how are we supposed to, I mean, Margaret, can you shed some light on that, if you would? And we'll go to Zoe for her to comment on that.
Well, I think the reality of the situation is that when I go back to what I said before, that life is a gift, and that the loss of each and every life has to be taken very seriously. The loss of each and every individual's freedoms, liberty, and the maintaining of their dignity, human rights, has to be taken seriously. But when you look at the case of Uganda, it's been 30 years. And in fact, even before President Museveni came to power, he started violating people's right to life and their liberties when he decided to go back to the bush and fight against a democratically elected government. And this has continued. It's as if it's always been self-serving, personal gain, self-serving, personal, pushing himself up the ladder, climbing on people's lives, climbing on individuals and families' liberties. And now, when it comes to a point where we have the International Court of Justice, he has a lot of accounting to do for lives that are lost in his hands or on his orders. He has a lot of accounting to do. And the lives that come into this world is not just a national life. It's not just one family's life. It's an international life. I think Museveni has to account. He has to be held accountable for the lives that have been lost. And I think that the unity between FUF and FADO, we must stand up because we've lost loved ones. We may not be directly know them by name, but they're part of us. Each and every one is part of each other. And it's this amount of respect that it's the resolve that FUF and FADO has to make, and we have already made, that we want to uphold the liberties, the rights, the life of each and every individual, irrespective of where they are born. That's immaterial to a large extent, because those are just freedoms that people have to exercise. And that's rightly so, because if it wasn't, why do we have plants with different of flowers with different colors? Why do we have plants with different sizes of stalks and stems and leaves? And that's just the way the world is meant to be. We're meant to have differences and yet united. And this is the beauty of FUF, and this is the beauty that now the alliance and coming together of FUF and FADO is going to bring to reality. Because at the end of the day, it's nice to talk, but we want to see something real. And This is now reality. And this is the reality, the time where we are going to stand up and say, enough is enough. I come from Uganda, I don't care. I can see the person coming from, that's Margaret coming from Lyra, coming from wherever. That's the reality we want. We want substance. And coming together now, here, this is the beginning of a big change. And I think that we have to not lose even one single moment, that the goal also has to be one of the main goals, is to get Museveni to account for the lives that have been lost, either in his hands directly or under his instructions.
Yes. And Zoe, I want you to comment on that too. Before I do, you can comment on this also. Margaret just put that very beautifully. You know, we have flowers of all different types in the world. And what we have done is we have gotten a vase and we have arranged all those flowers so that they all complement each other. No one takes the spotlight, but together it's a beautiful bouquet. And I think I understand that very clearly in what she's saying. Go ahead and comment, Zoe, on that earlier.
Yes, Miss Brenda, just look at your hand. Just put your hand forward and both hands. Are your fingers the same size?
Mm-hmm.
Are they the same length? They are not. But these 5 fingers work together when you're doing some work, right? Does one finger say, no, I'm not going to get involved when you are trying to chop your salad, or when you are cutting your chicken or meat to put into a barbecue? Your both hands or your fingers all work together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the hope. Because Museveni thinks he has the monopoly over everybody, not only in Uganda, but even within the region. He has deceived everybody and thinks that he has the monopoly. He doesn't. And he has continued to divide not only the opposition, but the different groups of people in Uganda, fragmented the country into tiny villages, and sub-counties have now become fully fledged districts without resources. But he has done it effectively between religious lines. You see what's happening among Muslims. He's there with the Protestants. He's blaming the Catholic Church. He thinks he has that monopoly. He doesn't. And I am just excited because FUF, under the leadership of Professor Ami Omarotun, and then we have FADU. Oh my God, these 2 organizations are giving back hope to Ugandans by coming and working together meaningfully across the artificial divides which have been promoted by Museveni. Our work, our mission of coming to work as a team, wonderful. What more hope do Ugandans need? And in the diaspora, we are coming together with other different groups. You know, last week I was talking to other groups and they were like, oh my God, this is becoming really exciting. Nothing like pulling our resources together.
Exactly.
Can you talk to your people and we can come together and join you too? I said, absolutely.
Exactly.
The ticket is being a Ugandan, understanding the love for the country and knowing that we need to liberate our country. Just what Margaret was saying. Having liberty is a basic right, Miss Brenda. It's a basic right. Having healthcare is a basic right. Having education is a basic right. Ugandans need to reclaim their country and get independent of this guy and move forward and develop that rich, beautiful pearl of Africa and regain its glory. And we are going to do it. We started it, we will continue and do it.
We will. We have a caller on the line.
We love that, Miss Brenda.
Yeah, we do. We have a caller on the line, so let us go ahead and take this caller. Hey, caller, come on and introduce yourself and come on into the conversation.
Hello, good morning. It's wonderful to hear you, ladies. This is Chiwanuka calling from New York.
Good morning and welcome.
It's really wonderful to hear the theme of today, that the focus is for us to come together. because what has happened is that the regime in Kampala has pushed very hard to ensure that Ugandans are divided so that they cannot come together to pull together to get out of the abyss that they've been pushed into. And also, the international community has been duped into believing that Ugandans cannot come together and move forward. I think as we talk about cooperating and uniting for a common cause, we are going to be able to answer all those questions and reject the divide and the rule approach that the current regime in Kampala basically adopts directly from the colonial government policies, where they have created this imaginary divide that the people of the South do not talk to the people of the North, and the people of the North do not talk to the people of the West or the East. One just need to take a casual look into our history, and you will find that when actually the Kabaka of Uganda was in trouble with the colonial government, he took sanctuary in Lango. They are the ones who actually protected him, interestingly, against another Muganda who was being hired by the colonial government to go and capture him. So the relationship between these regions are very, very long and are ingrained within our histories. For instance, you study history deeper, again, I will talk about the Baganda and the Acholi now, and the Lango. The Baganda never had the drum. But today, if you go to Uganda, you think the drum originates from Buganda. The drum was actually a gift, a joint gift from the Ruot of Acholi and the chief of Lango to the Kabaka of Buganda in the 15th century. That's when the drum was introduced. So we've had a long relationship, but for their own benefit, the regime in Kampala is trying to gloss over that history, that it does not exist. And they are trying to silence us. You know, in Acholi, they say, aling ma chichel wanga chichong, literally translated that you can't hit me with a bone in my face and you think I'm going to keep quiet. And what Museveni is trying to do to the society today is to throw bones at us and tell us to keep quiet at the same time. So we cannot. The damage that he has done to the country and the region at large is immense. And we have to move forward as one with our regional and international friends to resolve this problem. Because when you look at the genocide in Rwanda, you see his presence. You look at approximately 6 to 7 million people who have died in Congo. And you know, at times, this is where I get very angry with the international media. And I'm not belittling what happened to the plane crash or what has happened in the Middle East, but you find that you lose 300, 200 people and the whole world gets excited. Whereas in Congo, we have lost 7 million lives and everybody is looking the other side, and we know who the culprits are. Some have even been convicted in the international courts, and the same people who are at the forefront of this genocidal conduct are being given a position at the UN. You really find it quite disturbing. So the problem in Uganda is very immense, because when some of us talk about genocide by this regime, people think we are just getting excited. But I want you to remember that the first internally displaced people camp, which was at Panyimur, was there way back in 1987. We've had people being killed en masse in Namukola, those who remember the Namukola incident. And this calamity, which has been visited to northern Uganda, is now being visited to the people of western Uganda. The people of eastern Uganda saw it in the late 80s and early 90s, including the Mukula incident. So this is a national calamity. The criminality of the regime in Uganda cannot be tolerated in any way. And I think if we stay and we keep quiet about this behavior, we are equally culpable for giving these people the moral authority to continue carrying out the criminal activities they are carrying out in Uganda. Here we have to appeal to each and every one to be candid and strong in fighting for the country. Even those who are within the armed forces need to understand the kind of regime they are working for. For instance, there is a case of one Philip Mbag. This younger man is from Museveni's backyard. He was taken to Sudan to fight. He ended up losing his leg. What they did, they just transported him to Kitigumu Hospital and abandoned him there. So in his story, which is in the news in Uganda, he says that he was in a group called ECO of 120 people and only 75 survived. Now his leg was amputated. The government completely abandoned him in the hospital. He has nowhere to live. He is living in a friend's house. He had 4 children who have not been able to return to school. So even those in the armed forces, they have to understand that they are being used. And this reminds me of a cartoon that was in one of the local newspapers in Uganda in 1985 during the Nairobi peace talks, when the NRM government had a peace agreement with the Rutwa government. The cartoon had a picture of Yoweri Museveni walking on a highway made of human skulls as he aims to get to the State House. And this is actually being continued. I want to appeal to all Ugandans, where you are from Koboko, or you are from the farthest point in the northeast in Dodothi, or you are from the rolling hills of Kabare, or you are from the plains of the central region, wherever you are, here is an opportunity for us to move forward and rescue our country. We need to be understanding that we are all, as Madame Bakoko said, different in our ways, but in that level of being different like fingers, it gives us the capacity to be able to grasp the situation tightly and undo the serpent's chokehold on our country. I therefore appeal to all Ugandans to, for a moment, postpone our light but very important differences and look at the common strand of achieving freedom, liberty, and a genuine democracy and people's power, so that power is returned to the people. Then the rest will be returned unto us. All we have to do is to love our country. And we cannot say we love our country without cleaning it up. You cannot tell me that I love my children when they are walking around filthy. So we have to take a time and wash Uganda of the dirt that it is experiencing. This country did not go to the dogs. The jackals came to the country and they are devouring it. We have to chase them away, my sisters and brothers. This is our national responsibility. We cannot be divorced from it under any circumstance. Whatever the side effects of it are, I can tell you that some of the suffering that the people are enduring today might be the birth pains of democracy and freedom in Uganda. We must march forward as a united people and rescue our country. Thank you so much for the opportunity to allow me to participate in this conversation.
Thank you so much, sir, and you are always welcome. What a beautiful way of summing up what Margaret and what Zoe just had to share here as well. His comments are always deep and profound and touch us in such a beautiful way. Ladies, let's honestly have the conversation because he's absolutely right. What is happening in the media right now because of the Malaysian flight going down, where the world is on board and ready to give money and ready to get in there and rescue and do all these things, yet you have millions of lives and thousands of lives, even in Uganda right now, that are being tortured and things are happening to on a daily basis, yet the world would be silenced. It's the reason we have Voice Uganda Radio. It's the reason why we have to keep these things alive. The public management bill that was passed there in Uganda, it may silence the people of Uganda, but us in the diaspora community, we have an obligation, we have a right to the Ugandan people to make sure that their voices are being heard. Our platform that we have built here, we have thousands and thousands, I have 30 countries on board each and every weekend. Staying tuned from sunup to sundown to listen to these programs is the way in which we keep things alive. We have pleaded with the diaspora community to get on board, to start contributing, whether it's in your time and things that you can do, whether it be to donate money into the cause. You can no longer be silenced because a genocide will happen. This is the direction in which this man is going. And if we do not continue to keep this alive in the hearts of the people in the free world, Uganda would be all but forgotten one day, only to have the story told like Rwanda's story was told. And where was the world when that happened, in that genocide with them? Margaret, comment on that if you will, and then we're going to go ahead to the Honorable Zoe Bakoko.
Thank you, Brenda, and thank you very much, the speaker just gone. That was really beautiful, and it's very refreshing for me to hear. Yes, the international response is disproportionate. And I think, as I mentioned before, we shouldn't actually think that genocide is going to happen. I think that what the international community needs to be focusing on also is the damage that is already happening, the emotional and psychological damage, especially because that is where people are being killed without guns, bullets being fired. But the death from what is happening it's as effective. I would compare it to dying from carbon monoxide. You don't see it, you don't hear it, you don't smell it, but it kills. And it sometimes kills faster and in greater numbers than the bullets. Because with the bullets, you probably have to find the person, fire them, or find the person, arrest them. But once this carbon monoxide equivalent of what Museveni is doing was released, it's been killing silently. And that is exactly what is happening, where people are reduced to beggars, where people have lost their self-confidence, where people have lost their self-esteem, where people don't even know that they can produce, people don't know they can love, people don't have that love for themselves, for their child, for their wife, for their husband. It's just debilitating at the most fundamental level of our human existence. This is the crux. And this is what we, as individuals, should wake up to. Because this is really what is happening. You see, somebody can sit back once that equivalent of carbon monoxide is released and relax, because it's working. You know, the guns, the bullets, and the peacekeeping, ring fencing, peacekeeping move is just to reinforce, to make sure that the carbon monoxide kills effectively. It's killing anyway. You see, this is now the fundamental thing, because whatever he does, he knows he's already planted this seed, this carbon monoxide, this poison that is killing the people. And it's killing, because by the time a mother who is not well nourished, it's going to affect the pregnancy. It's going to affect the child that's being born. So really, if we really reflect on this, if we can just sit back for a moment and see the gravity of what Museveni has done to the nation, is doing to the people, we wouldn't even have to wait to count how many bullets or how many guns are being shipped into the country. Because there is already a killer that is working within the people day in, day out. Loss of self-esteem, loss of self-confidence, loss of our creative ability, loss of our compassion and love for each other, loss of our resiliency, loss of our all these things we are losing the very essence of what makes us, produce, of what makes us recognize even the resources we have in our very environment and use them for our own progress. We are not able to do that because somebody has killed that ability in us. So we have a job to do. We have a job to do to get people to recognize that we can. And so yes, what is happening now, that we that is the move that needs to be made. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Zoe, go ahead and comment on that.
Ms. Brenda, I remember, I think several years ago, I used to tell my audience, I think we were developing the Safe Motherhood program to ensure, just like Margaret was saying, that we have a program which is going to take care of mothers, not only when they are pregnant, but from the time a girl child is born, that this girl is going to have good nutrition, her bones are going to develop well, she's going to access education, that she's also going to be able to access health care when finally, and all her reproductive and sexual rights are going to be engraved in these programs, so that she makes the right choices as she grows. And by the time she decides to have a family, that she's ready for it, and that she has available to her resources and services that are going to keep her pregnancy safe. And then eventually she will give birth to a bouncing baby, have a happy family, and a smiling dad, and a community which is welcoming an addition to their own, or a nation as Uganda, which is going to be happy that another baby has been born and that it has been added onto its population or census record. But what we discovered was there are no resources and no services being allocated to keep this woman or this girl child grow up and achieve these aspirations and dreams. And we knew, if you know the mortality rates, the maternal mortality rates in Uganda, it is still very high. And so is the morbidity rates, even for both mothers and children and young people. And so in our statistics, I think close to 22 women die every day due to childbirth related problems. 22. And if these 22 were in a small plane or they were in a taxi and they crashed or in a bus and got killed on a highway or in an accident, it carries the front line of the newspapers, because this is horrific and they will put it on in the media anyway. But because those women dying is not seen, 22 women every day, and calculate that in a month, calculate that in a week, and calculate that in a year. And so you see, these are silent deaths. Nobody talks about it, nobody analyzes it to bring it to this gross genocide which is happening in a country, and nobody cares. Museveni will put a lot of money into the military and defense, continue to form armies which are going to protect him and to prolong his power. For me, what I know is that the partnership which we have created, between FUF and FADU, this is a real nightmare. Because you see how we are discussing this on radio, Miss Brenda, how we are bringing out all these issues and making the populations aware of their rights. It's the biggest nightmare for the regime in Kampala, because FADU and FUF, we are the real deal, Miss Brenda. Our partnership, which we have, respects the rights and dignity of all. Mm-hmm. We have begun to demonstrate in ways we conduct ourselves and treat one another. We know that hope lives in our partnership. We know that this is the real thing that FUF and FADU appreciate. They know the issues that affect the Ugandan people, because we are part of the Ugandan people. We are part of the suffering people of Uganda. We understand, we feel it, we know it, and we know that this has to be resolved. And coming together gives us shoulder-to-shoulder strength to be able to work together with the Ugandan people and say, hey, look here, we can do this together, and we will do it. And so that hope for me is enormous. I wake up and filled with strength, because I know that in our strength together, there's nothing we cannot do. The sky is the limit, and we are going to move mountains, Miss Brenda. And I will go back. Yesterday we were having a meeting. You have no idea. All our phones were being flooded with message. Where are you people today? There's a lot of songs going on Voice of Uganda radio. Has the government in Uganda fallen? Because in Uganda, when you hear radios only playing music and nobody speaking, it means the government has been changed or overthrown. And so people are like, has the government fallen? Why are you guys not on radio today? So that is a good feeling for people to know and feel that, you know what, these people, we are going to work together with them. And one of these days we'll hear that announcement. Oh my God, what a fulfilling experience. And I just give glory and praise to God every day, knowing that we live in that hope together with the Ugandans. And so, FUF, FADU, you are giving back Ugandans their voice. Yes. And there's nothing like feeling dignified when somebody is tramping on your rights and wanting you to feel inhuman and a second-class citizen in your own country. No, not again.
And on that note, we are rounding out to the last hour of our program. So we are going to go ahead here and take a break. When we return, we will continue with the last hour of the program. You are on Voice Uganda Radio listening to Freedom at Hand with the Miss Brenda, the Honorable Zoe Bakoko, and our guest who we have appreciated her comments immensely to the program, Margaret Opio. We'll be back in just a moment.
Kalino mulenzi wako tomu Nawamika mwagala nyo Nayenga katyoka nyo Galabanga kayambo renda vika Era wamerwa chalumu Kanyabo kange nakagoba Kafunyo wa kila saka singako Naye hakugoba ya kuwekubo Laba karona dekagenda Kafuna yo musaja singoli Nakalabanga malaika Bakola babine bezimba Ebyamukama tebigwayo Natitomu kamuyitako Gakamukuba mfufu Wetomera n'omukazi ng'olowooza Isebo wamuyamba buyambi Tomera n'omukazi ng'osuubira Tiwa mutuna mutuni Ebyo by'omutereka ng'olowooza Tiyakoma awo walimbe bulindi Emikisa gy'abakazi tobindi Ekyo olina okukimanya
The new Eagles.
Muno tomu mwazungira Asanga Karola n'omwagalwa wako Yabura okwetuga Nabakira wakasimu nakuba Rona nze nkwewunya Nani manyi nyabo wafuna nnyo Oyo fala wekyazanga Fere wa kibuga munange Singanda ngompa time Sweetie hati netwogera Natamanya nti oli gwa sweetiza Yali yakowa nnyo Kamuddamu essimu yange gireke Tomalirako muliro Abatalina byakukola mwesibye Mwagaba n'obudde mwamala Gwenjagala ali bize nnyo Tomuletako kamanyiro Kulabanga mistikolo Ebyange nawe sorry byagwawo Tomera n'omukazi ng'olowooza Isebo wamuyamba buyambi Tomera n'omukazi ng'osuubira Tiwa mutuna mutuni Ebyo by'omutereka ng'olowooza Tiyakoma awo walimbe bulindi Emikisa gy'abakazi tobindi Ekyo olina okukimanya Tomera n'omukazi ng'olowooza Isebo wamuyamba buyambi Tomera n'omukazi ng'osuubira Tiwa mutuna mutuni Ebyo by'omutereka ng'olowooza Tiyakoma awo walimbe bulindi Emikisa gy'abakazi tobindi Ekyo olina okukimanya Abasajja kye nagamba mulina okumanya bino Ekitonde kikazi kyassuka Katonda yatuwa feva Yatukola mu katiba kanjawulo Bw'olaba ng'eyafedinga Omulala mulaba ng'amatabuta Emikisa gy'abakazi gyomingi Kyo mulina okukiyiga Eyanobera mu sapatu Omusanga yasase kakondo Emikisa gy'abakazi Ekyo olina okukimanya Kanyabo ke wasibiranga mu nju Okasanga ku piki ketaya Emikisa gy'abakazi gyomingi Ekyo olina okukimanya Nabe yasibiranga mu kene Onyabo kati ennyama girisamwa Emikisa gy'abakazi gyomingi Ekyo olina okukimanya
Cause you only need the light when it's burning low. Only miss the sun when it starts to snow. Only know you love her when you let her go. Only know you've been high when you're feeling low. Only hate the road when you're missing home. Only know you love her when you let her so fast. See how when you close your eyes, maybe one day you'll understand why everything you touch surely die. Oh, oh. Cause you only need the light when it's burning low. Only hate the road when you're missing home. Only know you love her when you let her go. Only know you've been high when you're feeling low. Only miss the sun when it starts to snow. Only know you love her when you let her go. Staring at the ceiling in the dark. Same old empty feeling in your heart. Love comes slow and it goes so fast. Oh baby. Yeah, you see her when you go to sleep. Never to touch and never to keep. Cause you missed her so much and you dive too deep. Oh yes. Cause you only need the light when it's burning low. Only miss the sun when it starts to snow. Only know you love her when you let her go. You let her go. Only know you've been high when you're feeling low. Only hate the road when you're missing home. Only know you love her when you let her go. You let her go. And you let her go. And you let her go. And you let her go. Why did you? You let her go. You let her go. You let her go. Oh, you only need the light when it's burning low. Only miss the sun when it starts to slow. Only know you love her when you let her go. Only know you've been high when you're feeling low. Only hate the road when you're missing home. Only know you love her when you let her go. Oh yeah. Oh, you only need the light when it's burning low. And you only miss the sun when it starts to slow.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for being a part of the first lineup here on Voice Uganda Radio and being a part of the conversation that we're having here. You know, these Sundays are very important to us because Sunday is family in its structure. It's where we go each and every week to get our start for the new week. One of the things I was sharing with the ladies before we came back on air here was this, that in the civil rights movement here in America, when African Americans were still fighting for their civil rights, one of the things we did is every Sunday, everyone went to church. And church was a place where we were unified as one. We came together. It was where we looked for the lesson of the week. What were we going to do? Were we going to boycott? Were we going to have walks into work? Where were the rallies? Where were the meetings? The church was the ones that gave all that information out to their members each week so that we understood and knew what we were going to do to continue the movement forward. It's important, and I share that because I feel like that's what happens here on Freedom at Hand on Sunday mornings here on Voice Uganda Radio. It sets the tone, it sets the direction of where our hearts and our minds need to be. We need to continue to stay united and to continue to move forward. It gives hope to the Ugandan people who are listening and all of you in the diaspora that this will happen. We will move into a new Uganda. We will make it happen, and we will structure it in such a way that all people are created equal within the country. That we no longer look at your region, your tribe, where you're from to determine who you are and what role you play in the new Uganda. That is not something that we will occupy our minds. Ladies, I want to come back to this. I know that probably Dorothy will probably join us in this last hour of the program. And any of our callers, if you want to call in, we are down to our last hour. We do ask that you not wait until the last 15 or 20 minutes of the show, because then it's hard for us to really participate in what you had to share and to comment back on those issues. One of the things we have to say, ladies.
Rooms, okay, from AM Massachusetts. Yeah, I'm calling in to share with you some of the views you've already expressed, and I'm glad that you point out the history of the African American community in the U.S. and how they achieved their freedom. And the topic you have been covering, to me, I have two aspects of it to talk about. The one is the emphasis on community, which you've already pointed out. And the second one, of course, is the necessity for principles and values in order to protect and keep the community going. First of all, let me say that these are the two essential components of society. You know, when we talk about society, we really mean that there is a community. And what does a community mean? A community, of course, is people who recognize that they have a common destiny. And that creates a community. And once you share a common destiny, then you know that you are tied together, that you should suffer together, you should be happy together, you should celebrate your achievements together, and so on. You can translate those in many ways, nationalism and so on and all that. But the concept of community is very, very important. And when you look at Uganda today, the concept of community has broken down, and it's because of the regime in power. You've raised so many other issues which I don't have to repeat here in order to make the point. But there is one which I have always pointed out, this Hima-Tutsi arrogance, which basically is inconsistent. It is inconsistent with the existence of community. You cannot have Hutu-Tutsi arrogancy and at the same time talk about the existence of a community. I have some echo. I don't know whether it is over there. The second thing for us to have a community is, of course, security for all the members of the community. Again, in Uganda, you see that there is no security for it. So that, again, it disturbs the existence of a community. When you have people divided, being punished, some of them literally harassed and shot and killed by the military, that means that there is no security. And this is, the security is important to the existence of society because it brings about the concept of welfare of everybody. It guarantees, for example, welfare. The concept of welfare is the basis for guaranteeing minimum income for everybody, or protection from crime, or even protection of children, educating children. In Uganda, of course, as you know, we have street children, and this is a very strange phenomenon in a society where you have children living on the streets. That is a symptom, a very serious symptom of a breakdown of our society, of our community. You can't have a community and yet have children permanently living on the streets, which means they are not protected, they are not educated, but even worse, they are exploited With all those, you can't have justice in a society, every society where you have community and you need security. You can't have justice. Justice will only follow if you have a community and which is secure. You can't have. That's why you can't have justice in Uganda. There is so much corruption that a few people just think about themselves. They are stealing all the resources of the state, and I understand Museveni himself is worth billions of dollars. Of course, his income cannot justify that kind of the possession of such assets. Obviously, he must have stolen that money from from the state, and that is an index showing that really the leader is not concerned about the community. If you plunder the national resources or destroy them or whatever, you are not really concerned about the society. By the way, the other aspects of the terrible thing in Uganda is this destruction of the environment, environmental protection. Although we have laws, we have even an environmental protection agency, but the environment in Uganda is in shambles. Believe it or not, people are now beginning to develop cancers because the water is polluted, the industries are not regulated, so the security of the people is not taken care of. And now you see people dying constantly from liver cancer. These are not diseases which are caused by microbes. They are caused by the pollution of the environment. And so the problem we have in Uganda is far more expensive than we probably have realized. So with the unity of FAF and the FADU, probably you can't reform, you can't improve, you can't create a new society in Uganda without a democratic process that is healthy, that is thriving, and that can guarantee that the people are secure, that their welfare is taken care of. Now let me end up with the second point, essential components of society. I talked about community, but the second component is the principles and the values, and that's where democracy comes in. Now, let me give you an example of what I mean by this. There is a myth that a new constitution will solve our problems. Well, you know what? We were told that the 1995 constitution was a product of the ideas of the people, the barefooted people in the villages, that they contributed to the 1995 constitution. But the 1995 constitution, in my opinion, and I've said this in many places, was a political fraud. Political fraud because it contained the three articles which were inconsistent. Article 20, which provided that human rights are inherent and not granted by the state. Article 29, which elaborated and spelled out in details what these human rights are. And then Article 269, which said as long as the NRM system exists, you cannot allow political parties to exist freely. They cannot hold rallies, conventions. They can, in other words, Article 269 negated exactly the very the provisions in Articles 20 and 29. In other words, it destroyed the democracy. You could not build a healthy Ugandan community or society under the 1965 constitution. Why am I putting emphasis on values and principles. Those are the fundamentals. You don't actually need a constitution. As long as the people believe in these fundamental principles, of course, for protection in the future, you need to write them down and, to guarantee that they will be followed. But let me give you an example of Great Britain. They don't have a written constitution. And yet, no prime minister has ever been refused to resign the office of prime minister after he is defeated. This has been happening since 1568. All the prime ministers, once they are defeated in parliament, they resign. We don't have these values. We don't have these principles. And the British don't have a written constitution. They just have their laws, acts of parliament. So that's what makes it very, very important that now we have the experience of the 1995 constitution, which, in my opinion, was a political fraud, which we should avoid in the future to recreate the same situation. And we have the example of a British system which runs on principles and values which are not even enacted in a constitution. So my message is FAF and FADU, in order for us to create a community in our society, in order to make sure that we have security within our, welfare of the people is taken care of. I think that's what we've been talking about. I'm just saying the same thing, but from a different perspective. I'm saying exactly the same thing. We, in order for us to have a healthy democratic political system and justice for all, we need to have these principles and values. And I hope the people listening out there will go up in arms and say, we don't want this NRM regime because it has destroyed not just the environment, the democratic process. It has destroyed the economy. It has destroyed the society itself by letting orphans fend for themselves on the streets of towns as far apart as Kabale and Gulu, Soroti, Mbare, and Kampala. I mean, this is incredible. If this is not an isolated problem, so I don't want to go on and on. I think you got my point. Yes. The point, of course, is that for us to move forward, we have to recognize that these essential components of society, the existence of a community, without which, we cannot have security, we cannot have the welfare of the people or the children, their education cannot be taken care of. So I'll stop there and let you continue, especially remembering and never forgetting that the 1995 Constitution was the biggest political fraud that has ever been committed against the people of Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. It is always a pleasure. He is the historical side of us all that really sheds light on a lot of the issues that we may not even go back that far to look into the history of why Uganda is where it is today. We've got the Madam Dorothy joining us. So, Dorothy, would you go ahead and say hello and introduce yourself into the program this morning?
Thank you so much, Ms. Brenda. My name is Dorothy. I'm from here, Minnesota. I would like to thank all the ladies on the panel, of course, Ms. Brenda, Honorable Bakoko, Miss Betty.
Margaret.
Thank you so much for your wonderful lessons this morning, your comments. Thank you so very much. This has been a wonderful program, and I've been listening in from the beginning. I'm so proud of you. For our callers, Professor Mbilu, Mr. Nseleko, our listeners and friends and supporters, whenever you are, my fellow Ugandans, we cannot afford to waste our time. One thing echoes in my mind. Miss Betty said, we don't have time. We don't have time. We are way late. So please, the time is now. Our gentlemen in the studio, we love you for your hard work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and welcome aboard, Dorothy. I'm glad you're always listening to the program and ready to chime in on the conversation. I was talking earlier before the professor called in, Toni Morrison, a great writer here in the United States, that had to get behind and ask the African American community, what is it we want our country to understand and know? And I think it's the same. I want to pose these questions to you three ladies on the panel because I think it's the same thing that the Ugandan people need to start to make their anthem to ring out. And those three things were, do you hear me? Do you see me? And does what I say really matter? The African Americans had to say to the American government, do you hear us? We are crying out for help. We are living in a country that does not accept us as its own. We do not have the liberty and the justice of the rest of the American people. Do you hear me? Do you see me? Do you see what they are doing to us? They are lynch mobs. They are hanging us. They are burning crosses in our home and in our front yards. They are dragging us behind vehicles until we die. They are raping us. They are demoralizing us in every way possible. Do you see me? Do you see what is happening? And does what I say really matter? If I come to my government and say I have equal right, I have opportunities, I should be able to vote, I should be able to live in any community I want in America, I should be able to boycott a bus if I want to and not have a lynch mob after me because it is my right under the law. Desegregation of schools, all of the things that we had to fight for. These are the same questions that the Ugandan people have to ask of their government now, and especially those of you in the diaspora. Look into your country. Do you hear me? Do you see me? And does what I say really matter? I think to those questions right now, it would be a resounding no to most of them. Margaret, let's start with you, and we'll let Dorothy come in on that before we go to the Honorable Zoe Bakoko. Go ahead, Margaret.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brenda. Yes, those are the fundamental questions that we must be asking. And I think that the people of Uganda, within Uganda and outside Uganda, are fundamentally now asking these questions. Because the reality, yes, does our president hear us? Does he see us? Does he listen to us? Does he see what's happening to us, to our dignity, to our self-esteem, to our confidence, to our resiliency, to our creative ability, to all these things? Does he see the light in the eyes of our children that's getting dimmed and dimmed and dimmed until when, as we are growing up, we become we feel like we cannot do anything, we cannot achieve, we feel hopeless. Yes, what's happening in the country? What's happening to individuals, to families? Where is our president? Where is our leader? Where is our government? The government that is sitting and in control of all our resources. The government in whose hands we are placing our hands, our lives, our liberties, our freedoms. Where are you? What's happening to all the resources that we have in this country? The sun, we have good temperatures, we have good rainfall. What's happening? Why are we still poor? Why?
Yes.
Are we seeing? So the main thing is that all these cries and resounding echoes of the cries, the desperation that can be seen from our eyes, the eyes of our children, the desperation that we can see from adverts on TV, how people are suffering, no good nutrition. All these call us to make one resolve that we have come to a point where we need to do things differently. And the difference is going to come from the leadership. And the difference is going to come from a leadership and an organization and the people within the organization that feel for the people, that see the people, that hear the people, that listen to the people. And that can, because the reality is this, we all know it. You come from work, you're tired. A child is trying to say something. Even in these countries, in where we live in the United States of America, United Kingdom, you're stressed out, you come back. The child is going to be tugging at your skirt. You're not going to look at them. You're not going to see them. You're not going to see how the child is coming with excitement. Mommy, 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 daddy, daddy, daddy. This is what we did in school today. And then you're I'm tired of something. You don't see how the child is going to go boom. And you don't know how much damage you have already caused. Now, the damage that has been caused to us has gone long enough. And on this program, we have recognized how it's going to compound and how, if we don't get hold of it now, it's a downward spiral of societal decay, economic, etc., is going to get out of hand. It's already out of hand as it is. But if we come together now and do something about it, and doing something about it really requires us to go back and call upon our fundamental, underpinning fundamentals of our existence. And that is what Musoke Mobiro, the caller, spoke about, which is obviously the contained in the manifesto of FUF, and the ethical values, our compassion. Because that's, if you talk to somebody, I think even in some professional spheres, they're beginning to recognize that if you talk to somebody from a heart-to-heart level, you feel what they're feeling, and you talk to them at that level, that's when they will recognize that you see them, and you'll make a fundamental difference in their lives. And that is why we must now do things differently. And the difference is going to be in the genuineness of our leadership, in the genuineness of any organization that's going out to the people there, to really see the people, to really listen to the people, to really empathize with them, feel what they feel. Because nobody likes to feel bad. Nobody likes to feel nasty. Nobody likes to lose their loved ones. But the thing is that sometimes when people are in authority, like in our current government, we forget that when you pinch somebody, they're going to feel pain. Now, we probably should try pinching them and see how they feel. Mm-hmm. Because the reality is that they are not feeling, they're not empathizing with the person they're pinching, the person whose relative the life they're taking, the person who cannot get any food in front of their children. So, yes, it's time that we make a move and do things differently. And the difference now is in being genuinely concerned about the people, hearing them, listening to them, and providing for their needs, and facilitating the people to regain their dignity, to regain their creative ability, to regain their happiness, their emotional well-being, their mental well-being, and of course their physical health.
Yes, very, very well said. Dorothy, do you hear me? Do you see me? And does what I say really matter? Go ahead and comment on that.
Thank you so much, Miss Brenda. Thank you so much, Miss Margaret. Unfortunately, Miss Brenda, if you are posing that question to me, I would like to say, my fellow Ugandans, I can see you, I can hear you. I know what you mean when you talk. I know what your cries mean. But unfortunately, the regime in Kampala, President Museveni, and the few people who have grabbed everything, Miss Brenda, Museveni does not hear us. Museveni does not see us. He does not care about what we say. As a matter of fact, as you try to open your mouth, he makes sure you don't. That's why Norman and Robert are in Rosita right now. He doesn't even want to hear your voice, period. He does not see us. Uganda is about him and his family. Why are we poor right now, Miss Margaret said? Why are we still poor? We are not only poor, but even a small piece of land, people packed on the lorries, dropped somewhere they don't know, because him and Sally may take the land in northern Uganda. That the land in the Western Nile is gone. That the land in Uganda is gone. Museveni came, the 10-point program was reversed. It is about him, the resources. What Museveni wants is power and money, but at the end of the day, they want Uganda as a whole. Museveni does not see the real children of Uganda, and he does not hear them. That's why the country is flooded with foreigners. That's why they kill, they shoot. Museveni has no interest in the children of Uganda. He doesn't see us. He does not want to hear us at all. Everything that he does is to keep himself in power, then bring his son on the chair so that they can grab Uganda as they want. So is Mr. Kagame. They are after the country. When Honorable Bakoko, you said that the number of jobs that offered in Uganda, what is that? Their plan is to make sure every child of Uganda it is happening right now. Since when was a soldier supposed to have a gun looking after cattle on Museveni's farm? Their plan for us and our children, our grandchildren, to be locked in chains to go work on their farms. Okay? He does not see us, Miss Brenda. He does not hear us. It is upon us, as Miss Margaret has stated. FADU, Federalist Alliance for Democracy and Development in Uganda, and FUF, the leadership, is it genuine? Do you have the compassion and the care? Are you here to serve, not to be served? Are you here to serve the children of Uganda, not to grab from them every little bit that belongs to them? Miss Margaret, you talked about this man climbing on people's shoulders. Then after that, he kills you. If you are not dead, then he stands back, he drops the ladder on the ground and he says, you are a condom or you are toilet paper. Miss Brenda, I can go on all day. In summary, Museveni does not see us. He does not hear us. He doesn't even want to hear anybody opening their mouth. That's why the opposition is silenced. He does not see us. No.
Wow. Zoe, I will pose those same questions to you. Go ahead and comment on that, if you will.
Miss Brenda, these two young ladies, I mean, at my age, as an elder, I am just so impressed, and I'm getting happier and happier because I know they are taking the torch on. Even if I died today, there are people in Uganda who will stand up and voice our concerns. You know, Professor Mubiru just gave us one of his mini lectures. He spoke about the fact that the 1995 Constitution, which was developed by NRM, was a political fraud. That is a huge statement. Museveni knew we are a British colony. Why did Museveni decide to form a constitution which had both the British component and the American component? He didn't want the term limits. He put it there for a time and removed it for his benefit. Just look at what this guy has done step by step. Professor Mubiru just raised our consciousness about the street children. Is Museveni trying to replicate what happened in Kenya, where street children have become Mungiki, which is a group of lawless young kids who have been nurtured to be brutal on the streets? And when you had all this post-election killing in Kenya, who was doing this? The Mungiki. And these are supported by the government. And so this issue of street children being nurtured on the streets, brought from northern Uganda, brought from Karamoja, brought from the parts of central Uganda, coming from western Uganda, coming from eastern Uganda, coming from West Nile. If you go and research those kids come from all over. Museveni is abusing our children when he's supposed to be protecting their rights. And so there's an alarm sounded there. He is developing a group of people who are going to behave like the Mungiki in Kenya. Ruthless young people who don't know the sense of moral values and who don't know the sense of ethical values. And in spite of destroying the environment, you have seen the land wrangles. Last week I saw a posting by a young lady from West Nile saying, can you believe the level of land conflicts now in West Nile? People are killing each other. Why has Museveni promoted this? His brother goes and takes the entire Barifa. And they say they're investing, but he is the one taking that prime land, cutting all the eucalyptus, the forest trees, and those are the trees which have been protecting the people's houses from the wind and from the storms. And now you are going to have all sorts of things happening. And so these people are doing things which are systematic, and they just want to destroy our country. Does Museveni see us? Yes, he sees us, but he doesn't care. He knows, because he is the one inflicting this pain on Ugandans. He is the one deliberately in our situation. The government is the one that is undermining the unity and trying hard to kill our hope. He is ravaging our society, and it is a criminal regime which lives by violating the rights of its citizens. Does this government hear us? You just heard Miss Dorothy. When you speak out, you are silenced. If you are not thrown in jail, and a typical example is not even a Uganda, Peter Waldron, go to fadu.org, read that article written by somebody who is a Caucasian American who went to Uganda as a missionary to try and give Ugandans hope. He was thrown into jail because he was working against Museveni's aspirations of oppressing his people. And so he knows what he's doing. He doesn't listen to the people. He doesn't hear us. Do we matter to this guy? Of course, we don't matter to Museveni. He doesn't care who you are. And that is why FUF and FADU are working based on ethical values and principles. Just as Professor Mobiru wonderful put it, we are the people who hear you, Ugandans, because we hear ourselves. We are part of you. We see you, Ugandans, because we are part of you, because we see ourselves in that suffering. You matter to us as FUF and FADU, because we know that we matter to ourselves. And so therefore you matter to us, we matter to ourselves. And so in that concept, Miss Brenda, what am I saying? I'm saying that FUF and FADU are going to provide enabling conditions for Ugandans to realize their own God-given rights and potentials. Because this is what every Ugandan should have. And so the hope is alive. The torch is burning. FUF and FADU together, standing shoulder to shoulder with the Ugandans. We see you because we are seeing ourselves.
Exactly.
We hear you because we are hearing ourselves. You matter because we matter to ourselves.
Yes. We are, ladies, believe it or not, we're winding down to the last few minutes of the show. Margaret, our honorable guest today, Margaret Opio from UK. It was an honor having you on the program. So what the ladies and I like to do is the last 3 minutes, just speak from your heart, something that you want to share or something in the conversation today as we close out our program and get ready for the next program. So we'll give you the floor for the first 3 minutes, and then we'll go on to Dorothy and the Honorable Zoe Bakoko, and then I'll close out the program. So Margaret, go ahead and share with the listeners for the last few minutes of the show.
Oh, thank you very much, Brenda. And to everyone who has been listening in to this program today, I am honored to have been a party to this, to witness what is going on. This is a rise in the consciousness of humanity. We were standing up and speaking for the voiceless at the moment. We were standing up and feeling for the people because we feel for ourselves, because we feel for our children, and therefore we feel for all the children. The reality is that in life, something moves you. Something moves each and every one of us from deep within. And when we are moved, we either do something good or not so good. But what we in FUF and FADU, and of course I'm sure there are many other organizations out there who are looking for the same thing, many other individuals out there who are sick and tired of seeing other people suffering, or feel for other people suffering. We are here, we are standing up, we are able to speak. At least now we have a forum where we can demonstrate, we can articulate, we can express. Because there's so many people who feel this and have not been able to say it loud. Maybe they've said it themselves or thought it within them. Now, let's take advantage of this something that is rising from deep within us and come together strong ever than ever that has ever happened, and move forward. Because whatever it is that is moving us from deep within to do something for the benefit of all human beings will protect us and look after us and move us on. It's a great opportunity. I see this as a great opportunity for myself in my lifetime to be a part of this. And I hope that many more people can stand up and be moved in the same way, stand up, hear the little voice or the loud voice, however it comes to you, and we rise and make a difference in the world. I feel blessed and I feel honored that I'm part of it. I feel grateful to my own personal self that I've listened to the voice. The voices have moved me, and I've been working towards this end for over 10 years on an individual basis. I am delighted that today I've come across a family of you all and all the others still to come who want to make an effective change so that we rise and together do things differently and do different things to achieve the desired result of getting our people to be happy, to be dignified, getting individuals to get themselves to be compassionate. This is my plea, and I am grateful, and I am honored, and I thank you all. Thank you very much, Brenda.
Thank you so much, Margaret. Let's go ahead and go over to Dorothy for your 3 minutes of closure here. Go ahead, Dorothy.
Thank you so much, Miss Brenda. Thank you so much, Honorable Bakoko. Miss Margaret, I'm so honored. I'm so honored to hear your voice. 10 years individual basis. There is a thing that is going on here on Voice of Uganda Radio, and the people who are coming forward, people who have been dreaming for a longer time, people who had a better dream for Uganda. God, we love you, and thanks be to you for such great people you are bringing forward. Mothers and fathers who do understand. Now, I would like to thank all of our listeners wherever you are, our beloved, my fellow Ugandans. Miss Margaret is honored to be part of this. She is so proud to serve. We are proud to serve. Yes, it's a lot of suffering and intimidation that goes to our families back home in order to silence us. Miss Brenda, Museveni does not want to hear us. He will do anything in his might, but he will not stop, and he will continue. Does Museveni see us? Does he hear us? No. For him to go and persuade the people, African nations and leaders, and they follow for signing and voting immunity for themselves from war crimes and crimes against immunity, so long as they're still in power, it is unbelievable. Does that man see you? You don't matter to him. Then what do we do in our individual nations? We stand up to these men who are heartless. Then he wakes up and he knows he signed this immunity. Then what is the next point? I might cling on to power. I might sack the Ugandan children until there is nothing. If it means $100 for a Ugandan child to die at war, so long as I get that money and I spend one more night, one more week, one more month, one more year in power, he will do it. We stand up because the man does not see us. He does not hear us. This East African peacekeeping force, what is in here for you? Nothing. What is in here is for President Museveni and President Kagame to make sure they hold on to power. Miss Margaret, you mentioned about this man climbing on people's shoulders. My fellow neighbor nations, Djibouti, what do you have to do with this? Kenya, Tanzania, what do you have to do with this? Galanga is dead. The man, after using you, he kills you. So, are you ready to fight for this man and ignore the innocent children of Uganda, Congo, Rwanda, who have suffered? Southern Sudan, we have mass graves in Congo, we have mass graves in Sudan. For Museveni to achieve his means and protect his family and keep himself in power, please get up. I'm appealing to these nations, please don't do it. You're going to be used at the end of the day. For those Ugandans, the army, the police, who are still working for this regime, common sense. What are you getting out of this? It does not matter what Museveni do or does not do. The time is now. The children of Uganda, we stand up and we do what is right. We will do it because we have a right to stand up for self-determination and defense. We will do it for the right reasons. We will do it the right way. And Uganda was here before Museveni and will be here after. So, stand up and serve. Miss Margaret is so proud to be one of those who serve Uganda. What about you? Thank you so much, Miss Brenda. Thank you so very much, our listeners.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. Always with compassion, we thank you. We'll go ahead and go to the Honorable Zoe Bakoko.
Miss Brenda, I am just so very grateful to be a part of this team. And I mean, I could listen to these young ladies again and again and again for the whole day, for the whole month, for the whole year, because I know that they are speaking from their hearts and that very many Ugandans are feeling what they are feeling. And so for me, I think there's nothing more eventful and satisfying than what has happened this morning and what these young ladies are demonstrating. Does Museveni see me, or does he see us as Ugandans? Of course he doesn't. He doesn't, because you have street kids who have come from all the regions of Uganda. They are on the streets, and Museveni's next step is to nurture these children into what you call like the Mungiki in Kenya. You be aware of that, Ugandans. Museveni never leaves something happening not for a reason, if it's not going to benefit him. If these young street kids were a threat to him, definitely the next thing he will do is to pick all of them and dump them in the prisons. But because Museveni knows these young kids are going to be a resource to keep him in power and be the next killers who will do all the destruction in our community, he is keeping these children deliberately on the street. Does you, Museveni, see you and me? No, he doesn't, because he would not allocate all the money to the military. He would not be sending your children to die in some of these senseless wars. He would not be creating all this conflict and say that wars and conflicts actually improve the economy. Improve the economy for who? Mm-hmm. And you heard Professor saying Museveni is over $1 billion rich. If you saw in 1986 the photos of Museveni, haggard, poor, miserable, now he is so rich. Where does he get this money from? If he cared for you Ugandans, if you mattered, if he listened to you, he would not put all the money and ship it in his offshore accounts. You don't matter to Museveni, and now is the time, like the ladies have just re-echoed, that we come together. What is Museveni going to do as he feels the heat of all these organizations joining FUF and FADU coming together? Next week I have a meeting with another leader. I already had a meeting last week. What is going to happen? He has said again and again, you remember at the crisis of Miss Nebanda's death, he said, if you Ugandans threaten the democracy, the army is going to take over. Museveni might preempt a coup d'etat. Museveni and his cronies may come together and reconstitute the NRM with a different leadership, call it a loose coalition or anything, so that they will continue to take your voice away from you. The fight doesn't stop until we reclaim our country. And I think the time is now for us to get our voices back. The time is now, all of you, to join FUF and FADU, this big partnership coming together. And I'm grateful to have my voice back, Professor Amin. I'm grateful, Miss Brenda, to have my voice back. I'm grateful, FADU, to have my voice back. I'm grateful, Uganda. And I ask you to join me, and we work shoulder to shoulder and remove this guy and reclaim our country.
Yes, thank you so much, Honorable Zoe Bakoko. You know, the question put before the panel, and one we all have to ask ourselves, do you hear me, do you see me, and does what I say really matter? You know, my visits to Uganda is the reason for my struggle and my fight for the Ugandan people. Because the Ugandan that I had the opportunity to share and be a part of was one that broke my heart in many different pieces for the people that I left behind, that I was only able to be a part of their life for a short and a brief moment. The man that sat making crosses and sat there by hand and smoothed that wood to such a finish that you think that it went through a machine. Yet he asked me for pennies for that cross. I valued him, and I felt that he was worth more than that, so I bought all of his crosses. And I brought his crosses back here to the United States of America and gave them to friends and told them the story of this man. so that every time someone asked them and admired that cross on their neck, they could tell the story of this man to keep him alive in the hearts of the American people. The children I am all too often aware of, that I woke up, that were laying on the sidewalks as I walked through Kampala, hungry, runny nose, no shoes, clothes that looked like they found them somewhere and put them on, yet they walked the streets of Kampala. I went and took them to every vendor I could find there on the city streets, and I bought them bread, and I bought them water, and I bought them candy. I purchased whatever anyone was selling, because that day I wanted the children to know that someone cared about them and made sure that they had something to eat. My heart breaks every time I think of these children because I don't know what has happened to them since then. The man on my way to the hotel every night, that even though his chicken sold out every night because he did such a beautiful job with it and it was so good, always saved 2 pieces of chicken for the American woman that he knew would be heading back to her hotel late in the night, that would be hungry, and that he made sure that there was chicken left for me. This man deserves his own restaurant. He's an entrepreneur in and of himself. I am thankful for him, and I remember him all the time. Whenever I'm eating chicken or I'm at somebody's house, because I remember the love in which he waited for me, and he had conversations with me while I stood there and ate my chicken, talking to him. The lady on the side of the road as I went up to Queen Elizabeth National Park and my Jeep broke down. No one knew it was an American person on board, but yet everybody rallied in that little area we were at, looked under the hood to figure out how they could fix the water hose, so that we can continue on our journey. Those people had a love for a person that they did not even know, but they wanted to reach out and they wanted to extend themselves and they wanted to help. In a country that has fallen apart, in a country where these people are not treated with dignity, nor do their government even recognize them or know that they exist and that they're there, I am thankful for all those individuals who play a role in my life each and every day, help me with the struggle, and they help me to understand and know why it is that I extend myself out in this cause and in this fight. Because those handful of people represent to me what all the people in Uganda are. I see them, I hear them, and they matter. Thank you so much for being a part of Voice Uganda Radio. Thank you so much for being a part of Freedom at Hand here. Our honorable guests from UK that flew in for meetings that were held here in the United States, thank you so much for your presence. We are working diligently on behalf of the Ugandan people. Diaspora, get on board wherever you can, even if it's donating money to the cause. Get on board and be a part of this movement, because we are structuring and we are moving forward for a new Uganda. God bless you on this Sunday. Thank you so much again for being a part of Voice Uganda Radio this morning and being a part of Freedom at Hand. God bless you and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.